Today on Arguing Agile, we're asking a question that product managers probably don't ask themselves enough. Are your outcome-based goals actually dangerous? That's right, we're discussing how the thing everyone in product management agrees is the right way to work has quietly produced some of the worst corporate ethics violations in modern history. Brian, you're one of the loudest voices on the show arguing for outcome-based roadmaps. Arguing Agile 113, debating outcome-based roadmaps, 24th May 2023. And I quote from that, "The numbers are the only thing that matters," end quote. Direct quote. So what changed?
First of all, I was right in saying that outcomes are better than outputs, but I left out the chapter where Facebook used that exact logic to allegedly help facilitate a genocide or two. And when Wells Fargo allegedly, I think they paid a fine, so I think they actually did.
Yeah, I think in their case, yes.
Create a bunch of fake accounts or fraudulent accounts to make sure they hit their bonuses. And you know what? Turns out hitting the numbers can and will be used for the purposes of evil. Welcome back to Arguing Agile. If this is your first time, welcome. I'm Product Manager Brian Orlando, and this is my co-host, Enterprise Business Agility Consultant and the King of Pain Points, Mr. Om Patel. This is part one of a two-part series that I've titled The Outcome Trap. So in this episode, we're going to cover how outcome-based goals go wrong, what you can do about it at the goal-setting level, the mechanics of the trap, and the practical framework that you can use immediately. So in the next podcast, which I'll cover at the end, we're going to go deeper into why the trap is as pervasive as it is and why it's so hard to see once you're inside the trap. But today, by the end of this episode, you'll be able to spot when outcome-based goals have crossed from strategic clarity into ethical danger. I'm in danger. And you'll be able to understand why hit the number culture just makes truth optional, and you'll be able to walk away with a stakeholder outcome map that maybe you can use on Monday to help you not do evil.
Let's get into it.
All right. Well, since I'm since I stand accused, let's start right away with I was wrong about outcomes from Arguing Agile 113. Arguing Agile 113, and I said the numbers are the only thing that matters. I meant outcome metrics should replace vanity metrics like velocity and utilization, and I was right about that. They certainly should. However, I made a massive assumption that we didn't really examine in that podcast, and that's kind of the genesis of this one, is people picking the outcomes actually care about the outcomes not being evil or being used for evil or, etc. So in this section, we'll start right away in the against points.
So there are two against points here, right? Outcomes are objectively better than outputs. Everybody's saying that out there, so that must be true. Also, the second one, framework isn't the problem. It's the people.
I hate that one. It's like a platitude said so much. Nobody ever really examines it. Right. I think that is where it goes wrong. Nobody ever outcomes are objectively better. And then the second one, the framework isn't the problem. It's the people. That's the same one that I've heard people before is it's not a systemic issue because the system is just populated by people, and it's just a people issue. It's just a one-off, one-person people issue.
I call that scapegoating, but whatever.
Yeah. I could work in an organization that had an outcome-based roadmap versus an output-based roadmap. I would pick the outcome-based roadmap 100% of the time.
No brainer. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that the tool of outcome-based planning is broken. It's just being applied without a safety net. And yeah, I guess the other thing that didn't get talked about enough in the 113 podcast is decrease churn by 3%. You can eat up as much time and gamify it as you can in an outcome based roadmap as you can if you put it all on a Gantt chart. Games are going to be played regardless. So I guess that part of the Steel Man I sort of agree with.
Yeah, ultimately it is people, right? Just the same as it is with, the Gantt charts. It is the people that are interpreting things wrong in the Gantt chart scenario.
There's an interesting study. I was kind of on the fence about referencing it because it's Atlassian study, State of Product 2026. I don't know if it's a study or a survey or whatever it is they do, but in their State of Product 2026, they have this stat in there. It says 84% of PMs say their products won't succeed despite, quote, having a strategic seat. I thought that was interesting.
That's a huge number.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, all right. So it says most product professionals feel empowered and respected in their organization. 85% say they have a seat at the strategic table. That's great. I don't believe it, but that's great. And then the top change in the field is a shift towards profit over everything, yet only 12% find driving measurable business results rewarding. What's worse, 84% of product teams worry their current products won't succeed in the market.
Yeah, that's a high number.
I think the more interesting number in here, I know the 84 interesting number for me here is like 90% feel their work reflects what drew them into the field in the first place, and 85% say they have a seat at the strategic table.
So given those two high percentages, which is good, the other high percentage, the 84% of people that feel like their products are not going to succeed, that's like diametrically opposed.
Only 12% find driving measurable business results rewarding.
Right.
Profit over everything. That basically is telling me that PMs are doing stuff and they're hitting their numbers or whatever, but they're not super enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, they're not really impacting, the market, right? But the other number that they're probably making or chasing at least is the number that it takes to make their bonus. So I'm wondering if underlying all this is just that. It's the reward system as well. Part of it is also maybe they're working in feature factories.
Yeah. So there's a takeaway in this category. It's pretty short. It says next time you write an outcome on a roadmap, you ask yourself a question before you commit to it. It says, if my team hits this number by doing something that I'm embarrassed to explain publicly, like hey, if somebody wrote a press release about the feature you just put out, like from like a newspaper or something like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like this used to be sort of like the corporate ethics used to be like helpfully enforced by the news media and stuff like that, back when news media was functional.
Right.
So
right.
It's probably another cause of these problems.
There's no checks and balance.
So maybe that's a little activity you can do is like you write the news article about it, and see how you feel about it. I don't know if that can change hearts and minds enough to help you, not do the sketchy things.
Yeah, you got to be a little bolder than that probably.
I hope so. All right. So what do you think about this category? Have you ever seen an outcome-based goal get gamed at your company? Let us know in the comments, because the next thing that we're going to talk about is actual case studies where this went catastrophically wrong. So the logic of outcome-based optimization is sound, but the results, as we know, can be evil. So let's look at some receipts very quickly, because this is not theoretical, this part of the podcast. This is we're looking at history. These things happened. So let's talk about what actually happens when smart people optimize for outcomes without any guardrails, which is the normal way that this is done.
Of course. Especially if, what they're bringing to bear are massive results, right? As we're about to see, some of these household names, everybody, they just think that these people are doing it right. Now we're seeing that in today's environment too, right? Irresponsible or not so responsible pioneering of AI.
Well, there's also because they're big companies, everyone looks in and says, well, look, these guys are doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, my
God. We need to, we aspire to be them one day.
Yeah. And the patterns that we're going to talk about, they are identical across industries and across the decades. So, of all these companies, it starts with the exact same logic that product managers, I'm sure, use every day. So there's actually a really good study on this one if people want to read it. Pt1 2021 Pt1. Facebook's ethical failures are not a bug, they are a feature. AI and ethics publication. Well, I don't know if we're going to talk about the OKR stuff. We'll see. I don't know if I have it in me to talk about OKRs. It's a whole separate podcast.
It should be a whole separate podcast. Maybe we can get a guest in for that one.
But the Facebook's failure to check political extremism, willful disinformation, and conspiracy theory has been well publicized, especially as these unseemly elements have penetrated mainstream politics and manifested as deadly real-world violence. So it naturally raises more than a few eyebrows when Facebook's chief scientist, Jan LeCun, tweeted his concern over the role of right-wing personalities in downplaying the severity of the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh boy, this is the greatest hits of the last like 6 years right here. Of everything is sprinkled into this opening.
Absolutely.
Of like Facebook is terrible. Oh, Facebook uses AI-based technologies to filter out hate speech, calls to violence, bullying, disinformation that endangers public safety or the integrity of the democratic process. Really? Facebook is a champion of the democratic process?
Of all people?
Oh, boy. Like, so before we get too deep, let's just very quickly and lightly hit the against points of, listen, those are just extreme cases. Okay, that's not normal. That's not normal business. That's not what normal businesses do. That's the most extreme fringe that you're talking about. And then Facebook problem was scale. It has nothing to do with individual goals or the way that they do their OKRs. And then obviously the Wells Fargo fraud, right? It was fraud, which is a crime, and that was punished, and they had to pay a fine and whatnot. That's not goal setting. You can't set your goals to commit crimes. I guess you could have a goal of do crimes, sell drugs, do crimes. Like it's a pretty good goal. I mean, for an OKR, it's pretty good. I mean, it's missing one. Never mind. They're trying to say Facebook didn't set out to enable genocide or radicalize groups.
Yeah, I mean, they would say they set out to connect people and maximize time on the platform.
People are just evil by human nature. It's not our fault.
Yeah, we're just holding up a mirror or a magnifying glass, whatever it might be.
The harm was emergent. It wasn't designed into the system. The fact that we were amplifying all of this.
It was there to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Wells Fargo employees weren't evil. They were responding rationally to an incentive structure that rewarded account opening volume.
They were just making that money.
That's right. Chasing the numbers.
The unverifiable stat. Looks like that's exactly what Facebook's internal defense is. Users spend more time on the platform. Therefore, users love the features of the platform, the way the platform does things, because users spend more time.
So it's sort of self-serving, right? Yeah. So users spend more time, they make more money. Therefore, they should incite the behaviors that allow users to spend even more time.
Right.
It just kind of feeds on itself.
In that case, engagement was more engagement. Go get me more engagement. That would have been the outcome.
Sure.
Is like, hey, X percentage more engagement. That would be the outcome in this particular case, right?
Yeah.
If I don't know if it really was that, because none of us work at Facebook, right?
Right.
That would be it. So the stat was real. Whatever they asked for was real. But then that conclusion of, well, users are spending more time, therefore they like our product. That's obviously a lie.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Then there's no consideration of how people get addicted to this.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not going to go to the psychological side of it.
The psychological side and the mechanism of addiction is super interesting, and I've got another idea for another podcast, because now that I'm on tech Twitter and now that I'm on like Threads and all these platforms or whatever, I get to expose to the I go over to here to look at what designers are talking about. I go over to here to listen to what developers are talking about, that kind of stuff. Now that I'm doing that, like there's ways that different groups speak, and like the designers talk about these like dark patterns in UX design. You're not really trying to like pull the wool over people's eyes, but like you're being shady about the way you've designed something.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the Bietti paper, he says Facebook will not change because they don't want to change, and they're not incentivized to change. And again, I read the Sarah Wynne Williams book, so she talks a little bit about this.
Yeah.
About the one thing that Zuckerberg was super, like he would like the one thing get involved and move mountains to actually respond to with the business is if a country tracks something bad back to Facebook, like inciting, genocides or whatever,
and then take legal action.
And then they threatened not take legal action. He was less scared about them taking legal action than he was of turning the service off in that country, right? Like China just doesn't allow Facebook in China, like that kind of thing. And he would like move heaven and earth to not have that. He would make any change, he would up to and including sharing, all the names of the protesters that are at these anti-government protests with the government.
Yeah.
So the government can go, do whatever the government wants to do with it, just so his service won't get turned off.
Right.
So that's an outcome that he's looking for, is like, my site doesn't get banned in this, and then he's willing to do anything.
Yeah. So listeners, the viewers, you decide if that outcome is evil or not.
The other thing, the Wells Fargo cross-selling, I don't know if you're more familiar with me, because I'm only like tangentially familiar with what Wells Fargo was doing. I guess something along the lines of, like, if somebody opened an account, like with regard to a promotion or sale they had, like that was where the bonuses came from.
Yeah. Their bonuses were tied to the number of accounts that their reps open.
Oh, okay.
That's basically what it was. So the more accounts you open, the higher your bonus. So they would do anything to get customers to commit.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it can be gamed at all. That's
not at all. Much.
Oh, man. The classic one here is big tobacco. They're burying research. This stuff that has come out, over and over and over again about the way that they would sell, cigarettes don't kill people.
Yeah.
Research that was all, like, obviously a sham, and everybody knows it.
Right.
There is a takeaway. It's don't be evil. That's takeaway. But if there's another takeaway, it's going to be, when evaluating whether an outcome goal has crossed the line, apply the same newspaper test that I was kind of like implying in category 1. It also works for this one. It's like, write down the outcome your team's optimizing for. Write down the 3 most creative ways someone can hit that number, and now when you're writing them down, you're pressure testing whether you can, like, do evil stuff. Because you want that as a company, like, hey, what's the evil ways that we could, do these? Because you want to avoid them. That's why you're doing this, like, negative version of brainstorming.
Right.
And then what you're left with, you need to ask yourself, hey, would we be okay with this stuff, hitting the headlines or Reddit?
Yeah, I mean, up until that last bit that you just said, it makes money. Isn't that what we're here to do? Welcome to capitalism.
I mean, I don't know. I think this is greed more than it is capitalism. I think the unchecked greed is it's that variety, But also, the issue with an exercise like this is, like, I still don't think that some people that I specifically work with, it still wouldn't be enough. They would just say, like, oh, we just need marketing and be ahead of it.
Yeah.
We just need to, we need to keep it under wraps. That's it. That would be their response. Like the real sociopaths. And you know what? I guess this is a good test, because you'll find those people with tests like this. You'll find, like, oh, that person really they got a screw loose over here. Something's wrong with them.
Yeah, I like the newspaper test, actually. After you're done with that little exercise, just see if, like you said, would it be okay if this was actually in a newspaper as headlines?
Yeah.
Front page news for us. Are we good with that?
I could see front page news, like, Facebook didn't set out to enable genocide. They were just trying to maximize engagement. Oops.
Connecting the community, Brian. That's what they were doing.
Evil was just a side effect.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, boy.
This is fine. So, what do you think? Is Facebook just a little outlier? They didn't do anything. How would the Zuck know? Like, it's let us know in the comments, Zuck. And if you want to understand the psychology behind why this keeps happening, then stick around, because that's what we're going to talk about. So the case studies are clear. There's actual research that shows that goals actually function as mental blinders. Like, your brain literally stops seeing ethics when it's locked into a number or a course of action or a pursuit of a goal.
Those blinders are real, sadly.
Yeah. The goals as mental blinders is psychology of the outcome trap. Here's something that should terrify every product manager, every engineering lead, and every exec who sets OKRs. Yeah, I know. Your favorite thing in the world, OKRs.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Research shows that outcome goals literally narrow your cognitive field. They function as mental blinders, and you stop seeing things that are not the goal, including whether what we're doing is ethical or not.
I'd like $1 for every, or a penny, for that matter, for every time I've heard somebody say, get this done, no matter what it takes.
So failure is not an option. Oh,
that's right. That's right.
Well, what is it?
We got a citation.
In this one, I want to read this section here. It says specific goals. Here, you know what? There we go. Okay. It says specific goals can make you blind. It says specific management goals give a focus, but at the same time, they can also act as blinders and thereby prevent out-of-the-box thinking. Do you know the invisible gorilla experiment? I did not know the invisible gorilla experiment. You knew that one. I didn't know that one.
I knew that one. There have been some others like it, especially lately with the application of AI in radiology.
The article says it, but go ahead and explain it because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, so a group of people was shown a video of people tossing a basketball back and forth, right? And their goal was to just count how many times the ball was being passed. And as they were doing that, a giant gorilla happened to go across the field of vision, but they missed that because they were focused on the job at hand.
Right.
That was the whole point, because their attention was focused on what they were doing. They didn't have any peripheral awareness of what's going on.
So the article says specific goals thus can, I like they got thus in a normal sense. Specific goals thus can undermine mindfulness and spot the unfamiliar, unplanned event. Therefore, it turns out that for agile and creative work that is to respond to changing environments and enable exploration, some amount of goal fuzziness can be helpful. By the way, the right amount of fuzziness needs to be teased out by experimentation and
there is no formula for this.
There's no formula.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So this sounds like a paper that was written by a bunch of academics, but
this is just a blog. This is Antoinette Weeble.
I don't
2021.
This is Corporate Rebels, right?
Yeah.
Lee et al. All right.
Well, the Lee et al. So the other one that we had here is a paper. Here, I'll put that on the screen.
Oh
too.
yeah. All right. This is what I was thinking about. So
the other one we have here is a paper from 20 February 2026. By the way, the correct way to write a date, right there. That's how to do it.
Amen. That's the only way I write dates.
A benchmark for evaluating outcome-driven constraint violations in autonomous AI agents. This is a paper. Yeah, Lee et al. There's a bunch of names here.
Yep.
But basically, they were seeing how closely AI agents stuck to their mandated.
See how much they stuck to the tasks that they were asked to do with no consideration for ethics.
They call it constraint violations, outcome-driven constraint violations. They call it emergent forms of outcome-driven constraint violations. So they're given instructions and they're basically breaking the rules.
Right.
And it's funny here is that it says each scenario presents a task that requires multi-step actions, and the agent's performance is tied to a specific KPI, key performance indicator. And each scenario requires mandated, instruction-commanded, and incentivized KPI pressure-driven variations to distinguish between obedience and emergent misalignment, which is interesting. And then they ding Gemini 3 Pro Preview with a violation rate of 71.4%, which is funny. And which it says we observe they observe significant, quote, deliberative misalignment.
I love that.
Yeah.
Deliberate misalignment.
So I think this paper, the AI paper here that we just read from February, just outlines for me that like people have this problem, but also
AI has the same problem.
AI has the same problem.
Why am I not surprised, right?
Like,
who's training the AI models?
Just in case someone told you that you have these problems with ethics, but I can sell you an AI solution that takes care of it all. Just in case someone's trying to
I got a
exploit
bridge to
your
sell
issue.
you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So against, I'll go right into it.
Alrighty.
The against, super easy here. Goals, focus teams. They focus teams. Okay, you can't just give the team the goal and then like take your hands off the reins. Of course, they need further guidance and quote governance. Of course, and then number 2 is tunnel vision. That's just a problem with discipline. You need more discipline not to get that tunnel vision. Okay, and then if people game goals, then they're not being managed properly. Though that's the it's. Hang on, let me. I need to wash my hands because I touched or washed my mouth out with soap or
You
something.
probably need to take a shower.
But listen, those are very real and very real against points that I've heard argued for these things over and over and over again.
I'm not going to argue against that because, listen, everyone who's worked in corporate environments knows this, right? You got to focus on the goals. Right. That's our sprint goal. That's our this. It's always the goals. I think we earlier spoke about goals being numbers that you got to stretch for or reach, right? So yeah, there's really nothing here that can be argued against.
Goal setting theory is one of the most validated findings in organizational psychology. The Locke and Latham's research, it shows that specific, challenging goals improve performance on well-defined tasks. So that's real research that says, goals can help teams move faster.
Right.
So that's real research that seems to contradict what I'm about to go into. Aside from another reason why I hate OKRs, which it's a side tangent, but indulge me for 1 second.
We want to do that podcast.
Indulge me for 1 second in this podcast about the goal setting apparatus of the whole OKR industry. It runs with the same fear hook of if you don't use this one tool, you're gonna be left out. Whenever I hear that YouTube voice using that thing, I know someone's trying to hijack my brain. The OKR industry, they're using the same fear hook. If you don't set stretch goals, you'll never achieve greatness. Or if you don't use Jeffrey Bezos' system, you'll never be a, whatever, bajillionaire or whatever it is. We need more ambitious. Okay. So there's that at play as well in this. And I hate it. So.
Yeah, but I get where you're coming from. But also OKRs can work in specific cases, for example, sales quotas or churning out so many widgets, manufacturing output, for example. These aren't really OKRs though, but they can work. Right.
That's what I was bringing up. It was less about the construct of OKRs and more about the exploiting your fear of mediocrity or your fear of falling behind to sell you a OKR framework and coaching and all that kind of stuff. That's the issue. That's the issue here. But we need to get through this category. So to get us back on track, the over-ambitious goals, obviously, they burn a team out. Sure. Over-ambitious goals. So if your goal is, it's a failure is not an option, 996, get as much stuff done as possible. That's going to burn a team out. There's no other side of this one for me. It's real difficult to argue this one with me. Because a lot of the arguments start with a fear hook, or a lot of the arguments are disingenuous to start. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. And where have we seen that before, right?
Everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. No, seriously, we've seen it before several times, and we're continuing to see it.
Yeah, it's taken over right now. I mean, that's 90% of everything AI related that I see online is it starts with a fear hook.
Sure.
You're going to be left. You're missing out. You're going to miss out. The CEO watches that or reads it or whatever and says, "Ooh, I'm scared. Someone told me I'm going to miss out." I don't know why the CEOs are all of our grandmas on the internet. I don't know why.
I think the point you're making is valid because you see this all the time everywhere out there in the web world. People say AI is not going to take your job, Brian. It's somebody who uses AI that will. It's almost become a cliche now.
It is a cliche, and I hate it. Takeaways in this category. So there are some. They're pretty wordy, so I'm gonna try to summarize them as tersely as possible. I don't know why. As aggravatedly as possible. It's not a word. So for every OKR or outcome goal that you have the goal written, but then you need an addendum or a section underneath it of your red lines.
Yeah.
Here's the OKR. Here's a goal of here's what I want. But the goal should be written as here's what I want, but here's what I don't want. We need to pursue this goal and get X% more retention or whatever, but not compromise our this or not,
keep your head above the ethics line.
Right. Be mindful of that. So the normal OKR framework, I want to add a new section. And at that point, it's just not happening. I'm killing sacred cows over here.
You're basically looking at that saying, am I going to sacrifice my bonus?
Right. Also, why you fighting OKRs? It works at Google. It works at Google. Are you saying you're smarter than the people that run Google? That's the way it'll be perceived.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But it increased signups by 20%. It gets paired with abandon this goal if support tickets from new users exceed a certain level, or if we catch anyone manipulating the funnel, it's gaming the system basically. And then you want to review your red lines on a regular basis, however often you review the goal. Review your red lines on a regular basis, and then if they're too lenient, you adjust them, or if they're too harsh, you adjust them or whatever. I'm just adding another thing. I'm just sprinkling on another thing. Hey, we should be thinking about, people will call this ethics so that they don't have to talk about it anymore.
yeah, ethics is a big subject. But people may call it like being responsible, right?
Sure, yeah.
Being a good citizen.
Yeah.
Good luck selling all that stuff too.
I was going to say that the same thing you'll get with the Facebook excuses, like, we're a corporation.
Yeah.
We're being responsible is not our job. That's what regulations, that's what public policy and regulations
That's
is for.
right. Exactly.
And that is what they said. The government can step in if they don't like what we're doing. While spending money on lobbying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that was a good one.
That was a fun category.
I like that category.
What do you think? Have you actually felt these mental blinders that we're talking about kick in when you're chasing a target? Let us know in the comments. And if you're wondering what the actual fixes for these things that we're talking about look like, stop setting goals. That's the fix. Is that the fix, Owen?
That's not the fix.
No, that's not the fix. So we're going to talk about the fix next, okay? So we've got case studies, we've got psychology. You can't just go back to output-based feature factories because then you'll get yelled at by Marty Kagan. We won't get yelled at by Marty Kagan because he just doesn't respond at all to us.
That's right.
But somebody will get yelled at by Marty Kagan. He'll write an angry blog post about it. That's what he'll do. Here's the part where we stop pontificating. Do you like that word?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're about to postulate
All right.
something.
Oh, no, I never postulate before 9 o'clock. I never postulate without a coffee in my hand. The fix for the outcome trap. It's not to abandon outcomes. It's to stop pretending that the product outcome is the only one that matters, because every product decision sits inside of a web of competing stakeholder desires, and ignoring that web is how you end up optimizing for engagement while you start genocides in different countries.
Interesting. So let's get, this is the part that you've all been waiting for. Like, what is the fix? And we're about to get into that. So,
before we get into a fix, you can't optimize for everyone's outcome simultaneously. Like, you'll never make everyone happy. All right, don't even try. Don't even try. You don't even have a chance of being successful. So don't even try. What a great! Did you just see the tactic? The rhetorical tactic.
I saw that. Absolutely.
So
it's like, I quit.
It was so good. You. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what I just did. It was like, don't even go out of the house. It might rain. Right. Stakeholder mapping is just politics. That is an interesting pushback.
That is a good one.
And then the PM's job is to say no to stakeholders. It's not to,
especially their fuzzy feelings, right? Because data is the only thing that matters, Brian, right? So stakeholders, they don't know. The data proves otherwise.
Right. The other one that's not in here is stakeholder mapping. Like this is like the job of the BA and like the UX designer, like those roles. It's a job that you can't just write like a checklist and knock things out. It's a real nebulous. And because it's real nebulous, like, companies are already going to be uncomfortable even hiring those people. So that means the people in the company that do it are not going to be trained very well. You're going to have product managers, people like that doing it.
Yeah.
You're not going to have real trained professionals that can do it deep. And that means it's not going to get done very well. So the arguing point that I left out is this just looks like analysis paralysis. You just want to keep doing analysis.
Right. And also in combination with, you're not going to be able to please every stakeholder at the same time. Pick your battles, right? That's what you're told. So you optimize eventually for nothing.
I enjoy, those are great arguing points. But also, on the other hand, they're not great arguing points because they're so easy to knock over.
They are.
Those pins are so easy to knock over because you're saying, like, hey, we're not doing a binary thing here. Okay? Like, we're just making visible, making transparent the trade-offs, and then we can choose together, the business, right? We can choose whether we make a conscious, transparent decision with all the evidence out there. All we're doing is putting evidence out there.
Right.
And again, that's where I'm like, hey, if you're saying like, oh, evidence, let's not make that transparent. If you're making a case like that, like you're a terrible person and I hate you. Sorry. Something. I'm like, there's not a lot of good faith. You're not entering into the discussion with product management in good faith at that point. Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah, you're bringing in your own little what's the word? Biases, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, you can't please everyone, and pretend you can is its own kind of dysfunction. Mm-hmm. Right. So the question isn't whether trade-offs exist. It's whether they're made consciously and transparently.
Right. The steel man is right. Okay, you can't please everyone. But like you can make all the trade-offs visible. I had a CEO one time that she kept asking the same question anytime that product would present, like, these are the paths we're going down. She would say, you're not making visible and showing me all of the paths that we are not taking because we're doing these things that you're saying, oh, trust me, bro, I did the research and I did my own stunts and we're just going to take this path.
Yeah.
She's like, I need to see those things, that diagram of like, these are all the things we could do. We never did it. We never did it because of the amount of work it would have taken to map all those different things. And it was a failing on the person that ran product at the time in that company, that they never took that concern seriously and actually like internalize it and then produced what the CEO was asking for.
Yeah.
Because it came up, again and again and again over the years.
Yeah, it sounds like a shortfall right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The product's outcome is just one factor in a web of competing desires. So it's the stakeholder analysis that I'm about to talk about. It's the users, employees, like society at large, the populations of what, like Facebook. If we're thinking about Facebook, like who uses Facebook, like large swaths of the population.
Right.
You really got to do like audience analysis at scale. Talk about grandmas. Who I got to think when they build the Facebook features, do they think about these large profile segments that are using the features? How is a 80-year-old grandma going to use it? How's a 14-year-old just coming on the platform for the first time going to use it? How are that kind of thing?
They should be doing that. But
yeah, right.
It wouldn't surprise me if they're not.
No, they don't. No, yeah. Oh, genocide. How about how
right.
have we optimized for genocide? In Atlassian's data, 80% of PMs don't involve engineers early. They're ignoring a key stakeholder outcome before the roadmap gets written. That assumes that you actually care about your internal employees.
That's a big assumption right there.
Yeah, I know. That's from the Atlassian's blog, their State of Product 2026. That's what that's from. I find it interesting that we won't even be concerned about how our own employees think about the features. You think that tells you something about the company's general willingness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, employees, they're not buying the product. They don't pay us anything. Just pay to produce. Yeah. Sad.
Facebook, champions of democracy. Anyway.
Enough to make you want to switch to drinking real alcohol instead of coffee.
Who would do that? Let's talk about takeaways. So before locking out any outcome goal, run a stakeholder outcome map.
What is a stakeholder outcome map, Brian?
Okay, you're going to list every stakeholder group affected by the goal, which if you don't have your stakeholder groups, who they are to start,
God, yes.
You're already behind, and you're already losing, and I've got a book to sell you. Sorry, it's Stakeholder Outcome Mapping by Brian and Ohm.
Oh, goodness. That'd be a short book.
$600.
Short but expensive, yeah.
We only have to buy it. We only have to sell like 2 books.
That's
we're getting bar tab money.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 books.
So for each group, you're going to write, if we achieve our outcome, what does this, fill in the blank stakeholder group gain or potentially lose?
I'd be interested in hearing from people that are doing this at any level. I mean, yes, of course, people do persona maps and things like that, but this isn't talking about that. This is actually talking about something a little different, right? What do they hope to gain? So add another column next to it and say, if they gain something, what's the trade-off for them?
Right.
Again, for them, not for you, right? Yeah. For them.
Any stakeholder with a lose entry, that's where you were just said.
Yeah, I was just going there.
Any stakeholder with a lose entry, they get a constraint added to the goal. But what that would look like would be the reduced churn by 3%, right? People coming to my forums or people come to my site and then they go to the cancel page and you want to hit them with a last minute deal or something, right? Or make them call your support to cancel. That's a dark pattern.
Yeah,
right
and
there,
then they'll just escalate over to the retention team.
That's exactly right. We've all used software like this. It's hard to cancel. Yeah, that they're doing this. They're doing stuff that's bad for you, the user. but good for them, the company. They've made this decision intentionally. So in my example, reduce churn by 3% is your goal. And you say, if we do this, then people are going to have to add more support tickets because, so what you want to say is like, well, who's affected? Our support department's affected. Grandmas in their 80s are affected or whatever. They're going to pick up the phone and try to call somebody when they can't figure out this new complicated form or whatever. So you want to say, when you flag that there's a loss going in your loss column, your win and loss column, you want to flag to say, I want to add that constraint now to the goal. So it's not just reduced churn by 3%. It's reduced churn by 3% without increasing support ticket volume, right? Because you can track what people call about goal without X, Y. Hey, achieve this by this percent, whatever, your normal OKR framework, and then tack onto it, but without, and then you list your things that come from your stakeholder map. That's just one idea. So I mean, that's an idea that we came up with because, again, the OKR framework, I already hate it because it doesn't consider the effect of those outcomes. That's another reason I don't like it.
It doesn't have guardrails.
Right. It has no guardrails. Yeah. It's not like it's like even, starting genocides or whatever. That wasn't even considered by the people that came up with these things.
Yeah. So your product's outcome is just one small factor, right? The web of competing stakeholder desires, that's where the real complexity lives.
Right. What do you think? Do you map stakeholder outcomes before setting goals, or all this new to you? I think it's probably new to most people that would listen to this.
I would think so.
So let us know in the comments if it's new to you. Let us know in the comments if you have a method already. I would love to hear about it. And if you're wondering how this connects to the bigger picture, stick around because that's going to be our final segment. We talked about the case studies, the psychology, and we talked about a potential fix, something that could help anyway. There's one more thing to hit, and that's the thing that's going to tie all this together. So when everyone's chasing outcomes, the truth becomes optional. So here is the dark part of the outcome trap, and it's the thing that connects Facebook to Wells Fargo to Big Tobacco and all the rest of the potentially evil companies that are out there.
Allegedly.
When the one thing that matters is hitting the numbers, the truth becomes the first casualty. People say literally anything, fabricate data, vary findings, cherry pick, report metrics, and as long as it gets them to the outcome they're looking for, as long as I get my bonus. Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Listen, we're not saying people lie. We're just saying that people can occasionally, quite often, be economical with the truth.
I'm not even saying that it's bad to be economical with the truth. I'm saying the system rewards you whether you're telling the truth or whether you're lying. So back to this Bietti paper, because we talked about that earlier. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, in this section about hitting the numbers. It turns honesty into a liability, and the arguments in this one are going to be, hey, listen, transparency and accountability, they're the real solution for these things. Like Agilists will tell you these two things. So transparent, like accountability, meaning one single owner, right? The old Amazon, one single owner, of a business outcome, and transparency, all up and down the chain, inside, outside the organization. And then they'll tell you if these things are not aligned, it's a culture problem. So like, it's not a goal setting problem, it's a culture problem. And as long as you have good leaders in your organization at all levels, they will catch the gaming in the system and they will put an end to it. I feel like I just gave a TED talk.
Yeah, right. Good leaders catch the gaming. I mean, just that 5 words or whatever it is. Good leaders, do they really catch the gaming? Or in some cases, several perhaps, they initiate the gaming and people are just either tacitly or explicitly following those leaders.
Yeah.
Be like them, right? Be like Mike.
Listen,
whoever Mike is.
The against points are so good in this one that I can't. I want to throw. I had a couple more that I stenciled down, the against points. Brian, you say that you don't like output based roadmaps because they're a bunch of made up dates or whatever, and we're all just like struggling to hit the milestone or the little diamond on the Gantt chart or whatever. Like we're all struggling to hit that, and then we hit it, and it doesn't matter because there was a made up milestone in the first place. So like,
was it made up? Because maybe the leader got their bonus because the team hit that milestone. I'm just saying.
We shipped what was on the plan because it was on the plan. Nobody ever knew any deeper than that. You know, it was like people have been playing these games for a long time, and like, get over yourself. You know, people play games. It's a people problem. It's a one-off people problem, Brian. That's the argument. You know.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So we shouldn't do anything, even if the system in place creates more dishonesty. We shouldn't do anything. That's what we're saying.
The easiest facade to hide behind here. You know
the other one. The other one that's really great is the credential parade.
Ooh.
The credential parade that's happening here as well. The OKRs. This is another thing that bugs me. That's right. You didn't know I was morphing this podcast into the Brian Hates OKRs podcast.
No, we kind of figured that from the beginning.
The credential parade to say you should be using outcome-based OKRs, and you don't need this extra column and this stakeholder thing. And you who are you to try to improve it? Because Google used these as is, and they did a great job, and they didn't start any genocides, arguably.
That we know of. Look, proponents of OKRs are very, driven. Here's how you do OKRs. One outcome, one result, or whatever, one measurement. Sure. All of those things. The credential parade, though, goes a bit beyond just OKRs. We've seen this many times, haven't we?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what the people will be doing. They will basically pitch it as OKRs are unassailable because Google used them and because Google was successful.
Therefore,
I don't need to listen to anything you're saying. They must be great. As in, like, whereas my brain here is the opposite of like, look, even Google uses terrible systems.
Also, people forget Google are in a specific business space. You are not necessarily in that space.
Yeah.
So this copy pasting, tread with caution.
You know what? I think I changed my stance.
Oh, change your stance.
I think I changed my stance. I think I agree with the seal man here. It's like I'm firmly on the camp of like, listen, Google used it, awesome, great. That just tells me that dishonesty lives in every organization, and so it's alive and well.
You're saying that Google used it, everybody should use it. Aren't they a stellar company to emulate, right? So, okay, culture then, outcome culture just adds a specific accelerant. It makes truth a competitive disadvantage within the system, especially if you're striving to, get a greater market share, et cetera, right? That everybody wants to do. You've changed your stance, but I would like to hear from people that have tried the chase and not succeeded.
Yeah, I mean the Facebook situation, like Facebook, just like they don't want to get their service blocked in the country. That's their OKR, to be unblocked in every country.
Right.
And they're going to do literally anything
at any cost.
Literally anything
Pretty
at
much.
any cost. That incentive structure makes honesty like irrelevant. It's incompatible with that goal. Keep our service running in this country at any cost. The other one in here about it's just a people problem, that one, and it came up real early in the podcast too, and I didn't say anything. I bit my tongue because I knew it was coming back. The system doesn't need inherently evil people or people with compromised morals or whatever you want to say it. They don't need to find and hire those specific people. The system just needs good people with bad incentives, and the system will do its work.
Yeah. It will transmogrify. That's not even a word. Maybe it is. People into
It's just a matter of time. Someone
it's
falls
just a
through
matter
that.
of time. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. This is often disguised, I might add, as the culture, the Acme way, whatever your company name is, right? This is our way, and they sell that because you see, look at all these people that have been quote unquote successful in our culture. So come on board and get assimilated, indoctrinated, or whatever. We'll teach you our way, basically, right? So yeah, absolutely.
So there's a fix for this. Y'all are not going to like it. In cybersecurity, there's a concept of red teaming, where you dedicate a team to do nothing other than try to penetrate the systems, try to breach defenses, stuff like that. Yeah. So it's to assign someone to play the role of the red teamer and say, hey, if people find themselves morally compromised and decide to game these things, let me find ways to game these things. But that would require you to take somebody off of working the assembly line for 2.2 seconds to break down your bad ideas. And I feel like that's where this is going to break down. So find a red team reviewer, have that be their role. Again, it's not a job, because this is something that could easily be perceived by people as being problematic. They are always challenging our, the old, we got rid of QA because they kept writing bugs. So,
this is more like the ethical hackers, right? They're trying for your own company, right?
But a role, just a role, not a permanent job.
Sure, yeah.
And then, if the red team, if the person doing red teaming can figure out how to game your stat in 10 minutes, obviously, it's not good. It needs to be redesigned. You need to think about it. You need to go and think about your life, is what I'm saying. Go sit in the corner, Mark Zuckerberg. Think about your life. And then celebrate when you find these problems and change them. Publicize that you've changed them.
You've got to instill the culture, though, to accept these problems in the first place, and then have a way to remediate them. Then you can celebrate.
What if we punish honesty? Do you think we can find our way into a Facebook if we do that? No. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, what do you think? Has your company ever celebrated the downfall of a metric or goal that you knew was masking a real problem? Let us know in the comments anonymously, is what I'm saying. Can you make anonymous comments? I don't know if you can. In this episode, if it helped you think about your outcome-based goals a little bit differently, that's the only thing that I had in mind when we were talking about planning this agenda. Is maybe a little second look.
Sure.
A few little tactics that you can maybe try to say, I don't know, are we hurting people with this goal? Our users, basically. Because we talk a lot on the podcast, too, about rep damage when you put out features that don't work. It's if you're not even considering the types of users that use your app when you're designing new features and deciding what new things to bring out, what does that say about you as a company?
But Brian, I'm going to be in a different job in 6 months to a year.
Listen,
I know.
I get it. I get it.
How do you sleep at night? That's what I'd like to know.
I get it. So today we talked about why outcome-based goals can become a permission slip for evil. I feel like I should put evil in a different color. And we talked about the blind spot in all the outcome-based roadmaps, and we talked about stakeholder outcome mapping. And I feel you can go back and use that pretty immediately, the stakeholder outcome mapping.
Right.
Whether it gains traction or not, I don't know. I've not seen anybody use it, so I'd be very interested. First of all, I'm interested if people are even understanding their customers deep enough to do something like that. And
that's a whole different problem.
It is. Yeah, it is. So that's a product outcome trap part 1, by the way. So if you're thinking, okay, I'll just add some better guardrails and do this little exercise you taught me, Brian. Cool, but part 2.
We're going to challenge you a little.
It's gonna complicate this, because we're gonna cover in part 2 why the damage from the outcome-based goals is often invisible until it's too late, and why organizations systematically destroy the people that try to warn them. Boy, if there's something that organizations cannot stand, it is a whistleblower. And Deming already figured all this OKR stuff out, by the way.
Years ago.
Decades ago.
Yeah.
He figured all this stuff out and tried to warn everyone. And then, as we know, with the Deming work, everyone, tech CEOs all across the world said, who?
Right. Except in certain parts of the world.
Yes, that is true. Kumbanoir. That's what I'm saying.
All right. So that's a wrap. Let us know if you found this useful. If you're going to use the tool we suggested.
Stakeholder mapping.
Yeah, stakeholder mapping tool. And let's also know about other topics that you're interested in. Also, when you're doing that, like and subscribe.